Hey, Mark, what's going on, brother?
Hey Noah, thanks for having us on.
Yeah, dude, I'm excited. Whale Point Talk community, welcome. This is our third AMA of today. We got Mark from Williams Blockchain Society in the house. Mark, before we get started, I know Will's trying to come up as well, right?
Yeah, Will is the other co-president with me,
Okay.
and he's in here.
Okay, cool. So, Will, if you're in the house, you have to request to speak. Also, make sure you're on your phone. Twitter Spaces only works on mobile as far as speakers are concerned. Nice. I got Will. Let me bring him up. All right, guys, welcome. Before we get started, Mark and Will, give us a quick background to yourselves, what you're currently studying, what piqued your interest in Web3, and how you ultimately plan on bridging your studies at university with your Web3 aspirations. Would love to hear more about all that.
Yeah, for sure. I can kick us off here. Also, Noah, I gotta say, really respect the stamina here. I know this is what your third space of the day. It's impressive.
I appreciate that,
Um,
man. Thank you.
Yeah, but so a quick background on me, and then I'll hand it over to Will. I'm a senior at Williams, and I guess I'll mention for people that don't know, Williams College is it's a pretty small liberal arts college. It's in Western Massachusetts, sort of in the middle of nowhere, out in the mountains where there's like more cows than people around here. Um, and I'm in my final year here, and I'm studying computer science. I've also taken a lot of economics courses, and I think that sort of lends itself. Part of the reason I was so interested in blockchain is it's really this intersection of technology and economics, and really kind of every other subject under the sun it touches in some way. But I would say I first really got kind of red pilled, went down the crypto rabbit hole in 2020. So not a total OG, but I was first interested in it sort of from the tech perspective, from the computer science student in me. I just loved hacking away on projects, and it was really fun to spin up these simple web apps where you could plug into Ethereum. And what I loved, that's how I sort of started development on Ethereum. What I loved is right out of the box, when you connected an application to the blockchain, you didn't have to deal with all this other infrastructure for payments, for authentication, for back end data storage. You sort of got that all for free on the blockchain, which is speaks to just like all the things that we always talk about: composability, adding a financial layer to the internet. And so it just sort of immediately clicked for me when I was first tinkering with building apps. So yeah, I definitely came at it from more of a computer science background. I'll also just mention quickly, I spent a year studying abroad over at Oxford, and the Oxford University Blockchain Society is really, really strong. Met a lot of cool people there, and that definitely sort of just increased my interest even more. So I'll hand it over to Will, but that's quick background on me.
Yeah. Hey, Noah. Thanks for having us on. Um, so I guess I'm kind of the inverse of Mark. I'm an economics major, even though I took a few computer science courses at Williams. Um, I got into blockchain or Web3, I would say, more as a hobby in 2017 when I was in high school. Um, we didn't do a ton at the time, like in that club, but we did try to set up like a Dash master node, and we were trading crypto kitties, so that was all pretty fun at the time. Um, I got more, I would say, fully involved in the industry during 2020. I ended up taking a gap year during the COVID year, and I interned at a crypto fund, and then I was also part of Masari's community analyst program, and I put out a little bit of DeFi research through that. And more recently, during the school year, I've been interning at Shima Capital, so also sort of exploring the venture side of things. Um, yeah, I would say definitely being an econ major has helped in terms of thinking about like token design and supply and demand economics. Um, but yeah, in general, I would also just say, yeah, running the club at schools also um, it's allowed me to, take a lot of time to sort of read about things and just get a general sense of the space and sort of dig in. But yeah, that's sort of just been my story.
Beautiful start, guys. So first of all, would love to hear about Williams Blockchain Society's history, when it was founded, and what has developed over the last few years. Or I'm not sure how long you guys have been around, but over the course of your life cycle, what has developed to allow you to reach the point you are at today?
Yeah, so I guess I'll take it. So our club is 2 years old right now. I co-founded it with a recent alum last year. Um, when we first got started, I would say there was a little bit of interest, and then it picked up gradually throughout the school year. Um, and then after the Terra incident, I would say attendance went down a little bit. Um, and I co-ran it with Mark this fall. That was pretty good. And I'm actually currently studying abroad in Stockholm, so Mark has been running things this semester. So yeah, I'll let him talk about how it's been this semester.
Yeah, like I said, we're a pretty small school. Well, I think what is it, like 2,000 kids total at Williams. So
Yeah, about.
yeah, and any community sort of this small, the pool of people that are going to be really passionate about um, blockchain is obviously a little bit more limited. But we've been trying to uh, sort of drum up some more interest. I would say, well, two things that are potentially interesting. First, obviously, knowing that we're not, a Berkeley, a Penn, like a massive school that has, a extremely vibrant student community that's interested in blockchain. We're sort of trying to play to what we see our strengths as a liberal arts school being. So we sort of had to make a trade-off early on of like, do we want our meetings and our events to really be focused on the crypto native people that are already really deep in the space and like having these very in-depth in the weeds discussions, or do we want to make it almost more of like a top of the funnel effort to get, quote unquote, like normie students interested in blockchain? And so we've been sort of trying to take this perspective of like, we're at a school where people are studying a super wide range of topics, and it's very easy to draw in the people that are already studying economics or computer science, because you can sort of make the pitch of like, here's why it's interesting and related to the stuff that you're studying. But we're also trying to bring in elements of like, here's how it's related to like macro level, like geopolitics, when you look at just like how crypto affects interplay between nations and like, very, very high level macro monetary policy, stuff like that, to get people that are maybe studying poli-sci or political economy interested. Talking about some of the design elements, NFT related stuff to maybe draw in some of the people that are studying sort of stuff more in the arts world. So trying to make it appealing to a wide audience. And then at the same time, because there are some students that are really interested in stuff that's in the weeds, we've been partnering with other blockchain groups across other schools that are in our athletic conference. So the NESCAC, it stands for like New England Small College Athletic Conference. It's a group of other colleges in the Northeast, Tufts, Bowdoin, Amherst, Middlebury. There's, I don't know, something like 12 or so colleges. And we've been partnering with all of the blockchain clubs there to form this larger sort of coalition so that we can kind of, punch above our weight when we combine the most passionate students across all of those. So Will can maybe speak to some of the efforts that we've got going on there, but that's been a way to like get the people that are really interested at Williams and want to dive deep to have access to more in-depth opportunities. So we're organizing a conference right now that's going to be held in Boston at Tufts University with some industry speakers and stuff. That's going to be in April. And that's the type of thing where like Williams maybe couldn't have put that on its own, but when we partner with a bunch of other small colleges together, we can sort of make something like that happen.
Yeah, just to go off of what Mark was saying, so sort of this coalition we've been forming, it's relatively new. I started reaching out to people this past summer, and right now I think we have, yeah, 7 or 8 schools that are part of this sort of coalition of smaller liberal arts colleges in the Northeast. Yeah, we've been doing smaller initiatives recently. So we're digging into some like personal research. We have biweekly meetings, and yeah, but recently the main focus has been trying to organize for this event on March 31st at Tufts, sort of targeted at students who are thinking about going into Web3. Um, but yeah, I would say again, like Mark said, we're not, necessarily a larger program like Penn or Cornell or Columbia. Um, so I would say the general trend is at these smaller colleges that don't necessarily have the community or resources like those schools. There tends to be like I would say 3 to 5, or maybe even more, to be honest, like serious students in Web3 at all of these schools. So, and we found that by combining all of our resources together, we've been able to get like a lot more done.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, I mean, I'm sure it matters in some respects that you guys aren't as big, but I also think it doesn't matter in a lot of respects because you have found a way to broaden your member base. This coalition sounds like a very smart idea, and it's allowed you to hold a conference at the end of March. So hats off to you guys. Great work so far. Will, really quick, you said there's about 3 to 5 serious students per each one of these small liberal arts schools. It's like the interest is that narrow.
Well, I would guess I would probably say, yeah, maybe around 5 students per school who are thinking about going in full time. Um, I would say there are definitely like more students who are very crypto curious and are like, I would call them like serious enthusiasts. But yeah, I would say my experience so far has been there tends to only be a handful of sort of students looking to go full time into the industry, at least recently.
Yeah, I've been a bit
But
surprised
yeah,
by
Mark,
that.
what would you?
I've been a bit surprised by that too. I would say it's like it truly is around, yeah, like 3 to 5 students, and that seems to be the trend around schools of our size. Um, and also like liberal arts schools aren't necessarily these very like kind of tech heavy feeder schools. So I think that the student body at large is maybe not like the total target audience for a lot of the most passionate blockchain people. Um, but like that's the number of students that have prior knowledge about the space and aren't just sort of showing up because they want to learn more, but are like showing up because they want to discuss the news they see every week. And they're listening to the podcast. They're the type that would be listening to this space on their own. So we when you look back at like, I don't know if you've seen some of the photos of like, you know, conferences in 2013 where it's like Brian Armstrong running the Coinbase booth solo, or like some of these conferences where you have these incredible speakers giving a talk to like 3 people that are now like, really big names in the crypto industry. And we'd like to hope that one day people look back on these days of the blockchain society as like, wow, it's crazy that there were only 6 people gathered in this room on a quiet week talking about it. We should have all realized that this was something to pay more attention to.
I couldn't agree more, Mark. And when you guys have these biweekly meetings, it typically you're saying consists. Is it also consisting of 3 to 5 students, or is it a bit broader with people that are still enthusiasts and still are juggling the fence, or rather on the fence about going into Web3 or not?
Yeah, so we have
Uh,
weekly. Oh, sorry. Well, I was just gonna say we have weekly meetings that are with just the Williams College specific, and that's where it's like pretty like normie friendly, high level discussions. Trying to like kind of introduce people to new topics, and then the bi-weekly meetings are with the other NESCAC colleges, and that's where we're sort of doing more planning, and like everyone you're talking to is already pretty crypto native. Will, does that sound right to you?
yeah, I would say that. Yeah, exactly.
Mhm. And I want to know more about this. You guys gotten together with this coalition, and you've organized a conference that's going to be held at Tufts. tell us about the conference. How big is it going to be? Who is allowed to come? Do you have any major speakers that are going to be on stage? Would love to hear all the details.
For sure, yeah. We're a little late on the details right now. Some of the stuff we're sort of waiting till we have all the pieces together to announce it. But we have Will and I have been fortunate enough to sort of like have some various connections throughout things. So Will mentioned interning at Shima Capital. I've this past summer I was interning at CMS Holdings, who, if you don't, they're a great Twitter follow. If you don't already, at CMS Holdings and at CMS Intern. So that was a lot of fun, and they're Boston based. The Boston, surprisingly, kind of punches above its weight, I think, for a relatively small city when it comes to crypto, which is kind of cool to see, like a burgeoning community there. The Castle Island folks, another great venture firm out there. They've got a great podcast that they do every week, On the Brink. So we're trying to just sort of reach out to people and try to make it sort of like Northeast oriented. So kind of tapping our networks and seeing who's around there. But right now, I think broadly the plan would be to have it mostly focused towards students. And, depending on as it gets closer, when we're sort of able to gauge numbers and stuff, potentially opening it up a little bit bigger. Will, does that, any other thoughts there?
Yeah, definitely. So the conference is going to be hosted by the NESCAC Coalition, but we're also welcoming all other colleges in the Boston area to attend. Just logistics, it's going to be from 7 to 9. Like Mark said, we're still sorting out some like final details, but once we have them sorted out, we're going to be posting sort of like flyers with logistics and details about the panel.
Mm-hmm. And guys, what's your future vision? Before we get to the next part of the AMA, what's your future vision for the Williams Blockchain Society? Once you guys graduate and look back and pass the torch on to lower classmen, where do you hope the torchbearers take this club or take the society?
Will, do you want to start with this one?
Sure. I'm hoping, honestly, as our Web3 alumni continues to grow and support the club, we'll be able to hopefully bring the club up to sort of a similar tier to like the more established clubs, like again Berkeley or Columbia or Penn, and get more of a machine going. I would say right now it's run by a few really serious individuals, but yeah, just growing the club in terms of numbers, but also in terms of numbers, but also just having like a large amount of really sort of motivated kids who want to go into Web3 full time.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And I think like hopefully the club will be sort of a launch pad for students. Like I think right now a lot of it is us sort of designing the discussions that we'd like to have, the research efforts we'd like to do, stuff like that. I hope that eventually the club will become sort of a space where people come to weekly or whatever the cadence is, come to meetings with ideas of what they would like to see and implement on their own. And the club is just sort of this like support network to help them do that. But I would love if students were coming in with ideas of projects they want to start, things they want to tinker on, writing they want to do, and they can just sort of use other students in the group as a sounding board. I think it sort of like speaks to I almost want to see it follow this like progressive decentralization route, where right now it does feel pretty top down, where sort of the co-presidents organize every meeting and people sort of show up and we set the agenda. And I would love if it was much more of a roundtable discussion where people just come and they're yelling about what they're excited about, they're getting in arguments over different chains, like whatever it might be, as long as there's just sort of energy and passion. I think that would be super exciting.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think you guys are doing a fantastic job so far. And if we can be support to you guys in any way at all, we're happy to here at Whale Coin Talk. We can talk about this more offline. Mark, I want to talk a bit more about you. you were studying comp sci, you've taken some econ courses, you were interested in Web3 from a tech perspective, and you really loved how you could spin up apps on Ethereum, and they just took a life of their own from there. Curious to know what your aspirations are once you graduate. What do you want to do in this industry? You want to work for another company? You want to build your own dApp or your own protocol? Share with us.
Yeah, for sure. I think that is absolutely the goal. I think that's absolutely the goal long term. I think there was so when I first got excited in the space, I don't know if you've heard of, there's this thing like the Dunning-Kruger effect. There's sort of this curve that you can look up a graph of, and basically it's like the more you learn about a topic, after you feel like you've learned a lot about it, you feel like you've mastered it, you're like, wow, I understand all of this. And then you learn a bit more and you realize just how much you don't know. And I think there was part of me where like after a year or two in crypto, I sort of like I was listening to all the podcasts, reading all the book, read Mastering Bitcoin, read Mastering Ethereum, learn all the tech, learn all of the up and coming projects and protocols and everything. Try to understand, your Ethereum down to the EVM opcode levels and stuff. But then you just like learn how deep it goes, and you realize there's just so much to learn. So I've sort of had to expand my time horizons a little bit, where it's like I want to be constantly tinkering and building things and learning new stuff. But I know that if I just sort of rush into trying to build something right away, I mean, some people do that, right? Like I've known people that have not even been computer scientists or like like software engineers at all, and they just pick things up through like one boot camp and start a protocol and raise venture money and like just have a really successful ride. And I think that's really impressive. I think that I'm looking for more of this like longer term path of out of school. I do want to spend at least probably a couple years kind of just honing my craft in the software engineering realm, filling in a lot of the gaps of my knowledge, because I did actually come to computer science pretty late. I never studied in high school. It took me until like midway sort of through college to find that path. But I think like the nice thing about knowing that this is where my passion lies is that I can devote all the learning that I'm doing that time sort of towards this ultimate goal. So basically all that to say, constantly sort of, sharpening my blades, getting ready and learning so that kind of when the right idea strikes, when the right opportunity arises, I'm ready to go all in on it and just devote everything I've got to that.
I love it. And it sounds to me, just based on what you've told us, you're ahead of the curve. I even respect a lot of people that I started with in the space in 2017. Yeah, I've had that same Dunning-Kruger effect, and I felt that the more I learn, I just unravel another stone, and it leads to a sea of information that I know nothing about. Oftentimes when I bring a expert on as well, I feel like they're running circles around me. So I think that, or at least for what's worked for me is you want to have a broad knowledge of the industry, but then you want to pick a few sectors or a few niches that interest you the most and kind of dive into those and try to be an expert on those. But even then, there's not you can't know everything. But it does sound like you've done a great job, Mark, with reading all the books and listening to the podcasts and kind of building that foundation. So I wanted to learn a bit more about your time at Oxford. What was that like?
Yeah, for sure. That was a blast. I mean, it was a blast just like personally experiencing a totally different university, a totally different geography. So that was awesome. And then, yeah, as it relates to sort of just learning a lot, I was taking all kind of computer science and economics classes, and I basically tailored my entire year's curriculum to be geared towards blockchain. Had a funny incident. I was taking one course that was at this actually sort of this like graduate level program that was all about kind of like digital economics and like how economic principles apply to technology and sort of the modern digital age. And we touched blockchain was not a core emphasis of the course, but we did talk about it for one of the classes, and found myself basically in a room of like, let's call it 16 graduate students and a professor, and I think I was the only one that had anything supportive to say about crypto. And I got to tell you, I came out of that conversation more bullish on blockchain than I have ever been, because this was a lot of really, really smart people, right? And every single argument that they had against it was why blockchain was not solving the problems that sort of they thought that it was alleged to solve. All of the arguments I had sort of heard before, and they were just like broadly off the mark. They were bringing up like the classic, oh, it's energy inefficient, and I was like, well, are you aware of that? There are different consensus mechanisms, and there's this thing called proof of stake, and it's actually not energy inefficient at all. And they were talking about they were like mixing up what it means to be decentralized versus distributed. At one point, someone was saying, well, Facebook is decentralized because they have servers across the globe, and I was like, that is just not what decentralized means whatsoever. And so there were just a lot of misconceptions, and I realized that if these were a lot of really, really smart people, they seem to have these strong beliefs about blockchain, but it was all negative, and it was all unfounded, and I came away from that pretty excited. So that was just a small anecdote. The other just really positive thing, I can't say enough positive things about Oxford's blockchain society. They've just been really on top of the ball, always organizing student trips to all of the major conferences. They've been supportive with different boot camps and stuff. I did a boot camp through them over one of the holiday breaks with Chain Shot, who is now acquired by Alchemy and has sort of been rolled up into the Alchemy University program, and that was really good. They ran a hackathon that I participated in. Our team won the Web3 category. Not to toot our own horn too much, but that was a ton of fun. So they were just it was really lively, and the student body there was really, really passionate. The last thing I'll say is I've got to give a shout out to there's a group of students there, or just a group of people in the area that formed this group called Home DAO, and they're now running this string of hacker houses in the Oxford area. And it's a really interesting project. I highly encourage people to check them out. And they basically have this string of houses that's sponsored by different crypto industry participants, and they are just supportive of young builders in the industry, have a lot of great partnerships with different companies, do a lot of interesting discussions. And the basic thesis there is just if we have a lot of passionate, ambitious builders, put them all in the same place, have them live together, and kind of magical things will happen. So got really involved with them, and still stay up to date with them a lot. So really hoping to make it back to Oxford later this year at some point to connect with old friends there.
Brilliant. I would love to get the Oxford University Blockchain Society on for a Twitter space. We'll connect offline about that. Also, I can relate deeply with your experience of being in a room with people that are quite intelligent. And oftentimes, in my case, I felt like they were much smarter than me. But even the smartest people in the world can fail to do due diligence. And I found that to be the case oftentimes when it came to these people in my life who were passing down judgment on Bitcoin or on blockchain or on this industry. Sometimes took their advice a little bit too literally, or rather, sometimes put a little bit too much weight on their advice to my own detriment. This is back in 2017, 2018. But I really just want to say I have been where you've been before, and I know that feeling of just walking out of the room and be like, wow, people that are this smart don't they haven't really taken the time to understand it. Then this is still very young and very, very new, nascent industry. So I want to talk a bit about Will now. So Will, you're an econ major. You said you took a few comp sci courses, so the inverse of Mark. And you got into the industry as a hobby in 2017 when you were still in high school. You tried to set up a Dash master node. Were you successful in doing so?
Yeah, we actually weren't, unfortunately, but we tried for a solid week. It was still a fun process, and we learned a lot through doing it. Um, I did briefly set up a Bitcoin miner in college my freshman year, but it was just so loud I had to shut it down. But yeah.
Yeah. So were you? Well, first, what was kind of the barrier to success for the Dash node? Was it just too technical, or just didn't have the right didn't have the right parts? I don't know. I don't know how it works really.
Yeah, it was a little too technical. This is going back to my junior year of high school. Yeah, I tried to do it with another guy, and we hadn't taken any computer science courses at that point, and we were just sort of messing around online. I guess just a general observation. Documentation has gotten a lot better though through time. Like back then, it was just really hard to understand, I guess, anything that was going on. But the space has made like a pretty large leap, in my opinion, just in terms of having like better documentation in general.
Yeah, right on. Well, hey man, hats off to you. I was playing a lot of World of Warcraft when I was a junior in high school. Um, with the Bitcoin mining, you said you set it up. It was kind of loud. Were you able to mine any Bitcoin back then, or any a part of the Bitcoin, any satoshis at all?
I think we were able to mine a little bit, but it was just, I mean, it was just so loud. It sounded like a jet engine. So yeah, so I guess minor success, but it was also there was sort of concerns around it being a fire hazard as well. But again, it was sort of just an educational experience.
You put out DeFi research for Masari, for the Masari community. Is there anywhere we can go and read that? And what was it about specifically?
Yeah, I have my personal website linked in my Twitter bio, and that has sort of all of my writings that I've done so far. I'm just trying to remember. So I wrote one about Compound at one point was trying to make their own blockchain. Um, I wrote about that. I actually don't know if it ended up launching. It was called Gateway. I also wrote about Aave Arc when they were launching their sort of permission pools, targeting more institutions. Um, and I also wrote about the ecosystem of projects that were planning to launch on Optimism, uh, I think summer of 2021. So yeah, that was all pretty interesting. Yeah, now there are so many different layer twos, but like it was sort of I guess it was pretty interesting learning about it when it was all happening because I didn't fully understand it, but I'm glad I was writing for Masari at the time because it just it's nice when sort of your job or your work is just like being very caught up and just constantly learning.
And you're also, um, I think you're interning for Chima. You said doing exploring the venture side of things. Tell us about that experience. What kind of work you've been doing?
Yeah, so I interned for Shima this summer and I worked part-time for them this fall. I'm actually going to be doing something a little bit different this summer, but yeah, it's just been a really interesting experience seeing things from more of the investment side because when I was doing the community analyst at Masari program at Masari, it was more just approaching things um, from a research perspective, and oftentimes like you would read, oh, such and such project was invested in by these VCs, and it was really interesting to see the other side of things. Yeah, in the last 6 months.
And
Yeah, oh, sorry. Yep.
no, go for it. I thought you were done.
Oh yeah, no, I was going to say at Shima, I mainly was looking at DeFi projects. I would say different guys on their team, and I'm sure a lot of other VCs are like this, sort of specialize in certain sectors. Like um, certain people will focus on gaming, or certain people focus on NFT related projects. But yeah, it was a really fun experience because I got to sort of specialize in an area I really enjoyed.
That's awesome. And are you able to give us a sneak peek into what your summer plans are this year?
Yeah, I think they're kind of in stealth right now, but I'm going to be helping a startup with token design and maybe a little bit of product strategy.
That's awesome, man. And you mentioned that you're currently studying abroad in Stockholm. My girlfriend's Swedish, and I really want to visit soon one day. Would love to hear about your experience.
Oh, nice. Yeah, Stockholm's been great. It's pretty culturally different than the US. I would say people here definitely a little more reserved. It gets dark out really early. Um, like in January when I arrived, the sun sets at like 4 p.m. Um, but yeah, there's definitely a lot of cultural sites that are really interesting to check out. Yeah, if you travel to other cities like Gothenburg, you need to check out the Volvo Museum. That was really fun. I went to that. But yeah, I would highly recommend checking it out.
That's awesome. I when you said you were studying abroad in Stockholm, I'm like, damn, it must be so dark and cold there right now. I don't know if you're going to be able to experience the summer at all, but there are times in Northern Europe where like the sun sets at, I don't know, I was in Russia a while ago, but the sun sets at like 1 a.m. and then it rises again at 4. And I think Stockholm's probably the same.
Yeah, definitely. There's yeah, not a ton of daylight here.
Cool. Guys, well, you chose Williams College, small liberal arts school. It's in the mountains, which sounds awesome. Curious to know what, again, this is my first time interviewing a blockchain society from a small liberal arts school, but curious to know as students out of high school, what made you choose going to a small school instead of one of the bigger ones?
I can maybe start here. I think so I'm from the Northeast, not far from here, and actually have some family members that came to Williams, and so I had heard nothing but positive things about their experience, and I think part of that sort of influenced me. I think a big thing is having pretty small classes where you get to interact very closely with professors is really nice. It's kind of rare to get almost close to one-on-one mentorship with experts in, especially in a field like computer science where there's so much demand for people in tech that it's not often that I guess it's tougher to draw people to academia. So that's been great. And then I think also just kind of the tight knit community here is really strong. So like we said, it might be a smaller just quantitatively group than other schools, but I think we are very cohesive in not just the blockchain society, but really kind of any student group on campus. And it's nice being able to walk around and everybody sort of knows each other, and it's all kind of one little group of us out in the mountains where you've there's not a ton going on, but you kind of make your own fun and get to know people really well along the way.
Yeah, I love that tight knit communal atmosphere. Honestly, I think I would have really enjoyed that in college, but my school wasn't too big. Will, what about you?
Yeah, I'll second most of what Mark said for sure. The tight knit community is awesome. Um, and something I've noticed is I would say all of my professors really care, and it's really noticeable that they do. Um, they're always available to meet after class, and because the classes are small, you really get to know everyone in your class. And um, yeah, I would say it's definitely just a better learning environment because of it.
I love smaller classes. Um, I, I've been in big classes, like massive auditoriums, and then smaller classes, and the latter has just been so much more rewarding. And I felt like I got a lot more out of that class, as you get that one-on-one personalized experience with the professor. So yeah, great guys. And what about accredited blockchain courses? Is that something that Williams is ever going to explore in the near future? Do you have any professors that are on board that are hip with Web3?
Unfortunately, I don't know if that's going to be in the cards anytime super soon. I know there's definitely a lot of computer science classes that help you sort of grasp the fundamentals that are necessary for really understanding the technicals of blockchain. So I'm in a distributed systems class right now and learning a lot about, networks and just, yeah, I guess distributed systems in general is obviously very important to know. Other courses like that help you understand the inner workings of protocols, of consensus mechanisms, of things like that. And then obviously the economic side of things, just understanding the basics and sort of just being generally literate in that area helps you when it comes to blockchain in general, and also applications, DeFi protocols, things like that. It helps you understand precisely how you got absolutely wrecked in the Olympus DAO ohm crash, because you understand the game theory and you understand why 3,3 didn't pan out, but even though it seemed promising. So that's been nice, but I don't know. Honestly, a lot of our courses here are specifically meant to be very general. Part of the liberal arts kind of ethos is that courses shouldn't be too like pre-professional. So, the med students here, people that want to study medicine, there's no really classes that are specific to medicine. It's just you kind of study like biology and get the basics there. And, students that want to go into finance, there's no real finance courses. You just take a lot of economics, and then that sort of the idea is that prepares you with just sort of like the economic way of thinking, and then you kind of have to learn that other stuff on the job. And I think blockchain is sort of the same way, where it's viewed as a little bit too niche of a subject for them to necessarily offer specific courses there. But Will, does that sound like kind of your experience?
Yeah, I would agree with that. It's definitely in the ethos of the college to promote more like general classes that you can later apply to more specialized things. But part of a really cool aspect of Williams, though, is during January, we have something called winter study. And during the month of January, you only take one class and it's pass or fail. And those classes tend to be a little more creative. So I was actually hoping to talk to a professor next year about maybe having like a blockchain related winter study class, and hopefully spiking interest, through that.
Yeah, no doubt. Take it one step at a time. You guys are certainly moving the needle forward. When I was in college, there were no blockchain clubs or even the infrastructure or even professors that would even want to listen. So I think that, and I say this very often now, that your generation, Gen Z, Gen Alpha, are going to be the next big wave of money, interest, great minds, adoption that funnel into this industry. And on that end, by the way, Will, I pinned actually pinned your website to the space so people can go check out your research if they want.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, no doubt. So that kind of leads me to the last part of the space, and I'm curious to know. Well, let me preface by saying none of this is financial advice or should be taken, and all should be taken with a grain of salt. But I like to do this fun Q&A where I ask students about various assets in the industry and various sectors of the industry that they might find bullish. But let's start with Mark, and then go to Will. So, Mark, what are your thoughts on Bitcoin? Do you think Bitcoin will remain the top dog, or do you think it'll eventually be flipped by another asset? And if so, which?
Yeah, the many billion-dollar question, right? I think that my answer when it comes to specific assets is pretty bland and pretty consensus based on at least a lot of the kind of top minds that I've listened to in the industry, which I'm pretty confident in Bitcoin and Ethereum, and excited about, but only cautiously optimistic about any other specific asset. Like, I think when it comes to other assets, it almost makes sense just to think about like an index of having a broad basket of kind of everything else, just because Bitcoin and Ethereum are the like two 1,000-pound gorillas in the room. I think that I would see, at least for the very long term, Bitcoin maintaining its place as top dog. I think that it sort of cemented this this niche as the monetary, like money first kind of crypto asset. It's had different narratives around store of value, inflation hedge, all these different things, and kind of regardless of which specific narrative you're talking about, it's clear that if someone in the space right now, if someone who's new to crypto like wants exposure to crypto, like the first thing you're probably going to recommend to them is like to buy Bitcoin. And it's sort of become this Schelling point of just what people think of when they think crypto. And I think that it is what gives it's got sort of this Lindy effect to it too, right? Which people talk about. It's the oldest one, it's trusted, it's secure. So I think at least for like the foreseeable future, I see Bitcoin maintaining its top place and ETH being a very strong second place. And like it's really hard to say anything with confidence beyond that, right?
Yeah, I love that take, and it's a fair point of departure. I feel very similarly. Will, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I guess it's a difficult question. I definitely think, Bitcoin's always going to have its place. I think the argument for ETH versus Bitcoin, though, is just very different. Ethereum is more trying to replace the internet in a way, and Bitcoin is trying to replace money. So I guess I am more, I guess I would say I sort of believe stronger in ETH, I would say. Just because, especially in the last like 2 years, we've just seen so many like amazing applications come out that have been building on Ethereum and other layer ones. Um, but yeah, I definitely understand the argument for Bitcoin being a store of value and better than gold in many senses. But yeah, that's probably my take.
Beautiful. So, Mark, are you also bullish ETH? And do you think the
Like
merge was the right idea?
yeah, no, I think my previous answer is my rough prediction um about the future, but like personally I'm much more excited about the Ethereum ecosystem than I know there's interesting stuff happening in Bitcoin right now. All the ordinals drama and stuff is definitely very interesting, but I think personally for me, like Ethereum blows me away. The developer community, I mean, you brought up the merge. That is one of the most impressive, like, collective technological feats in software history. The people that compare it to swapping out the engine of an airplane while it's flying, I think that is like a very fair analogy just to gauge how impressive it is. And for that to have gone off without a hitch, like, I can't say enough impressive things about Vitalik, about the Ethereum core dev team, and about just the ecosystem that's building around it. I mean, you see right now, even with Coinbase, the launch of the base L2 is sort of the hot topic of the week, and that's a layer two on what else but Ethereum. It's clearly where the developers that want to push the bounds of blockchain seem to be building. That's nothing again. I mean, so many great things to say also about Cosmos app chains, and like I'm not one of the total ETH maxis that say other L1s aren't good, but I just think that it's shown the strongest staying power and has some really great minds behind it. The other, I don't know if this is jumping ahead to other questions you're going to ask, but I think two of the things that get me most excited right now about the Ethereum ecosystem that make me even more bullish. First of all, account abstraction. I put together like a written piece on that recently, but I think that's going to solve so many UX problems within like just the Web3 space broadly. And Ethereum is really pushing forward on that. There are very promising EIPs that sort of have that in place and ready to go. And then also, I am mega bullish ZK proofs. I think all things ZK are really, really cool. Part of that's just the like computer science kind of math nerd in me that thinks it's really just phenomenally exciting technology. But I think it's also very practical because ZK gets to the core of privacy and scalability, which have been sort of thorns in the side of blockchain protocols for so long. And to be able to deploy ZK solutions that just almost magically seem to address both of those problems, whether we're talking ZK rollups or whether we're talking, privacy preserving L2s, like it's just really, really exciting. And I think what's cool is even in the bear market right now, there's a lot of activity building in the ZK space, and a lot of really, big giga brains working in there. So I'm really excited. And I think the next bull run that we're going to see is going to be very heavily ZK powered. The last thing I'll say there Vitalik is on the record as saying that he thinks that zero knowledge technology will be as big as blockchain technology. So if that doesn't tell you something, I think if that is just like a very clear sign of like pay attention to ZK.
Shout out Mina Protocol, not financial advice. Mark, I love to hear someone who's as bullish Ethereum as I am. Will, I don't know if you had anything to add to that. I feel like Mark just kind of stole both of our thunders. I couldn't have articulated that better myself.
Yeah, no, definitely. I fully agree with Mark's take. Yeah, again, I'm pretty bullish ZK as well. I definitely think like ZK KYC has to happen at some point. Just because, I mean, I think it's all right not having KYC for a lot of these protocols right now, but eventually it's gonna have to happen. But yeah.
And Mark, we pinned that Acti pinned that explanation, that in-depth explanation of the concepts to the space as well. So, guys, what sectors of the industry excite you the most? Let's start with Will. What gets your blood boiling?
Industries or sectors. I mean, I would still say DeFi. DeFi has always kind of been my main interest in the space. Um, I would say it's sort of been in a lull recently, but I think at a certain point there's going to be innovation that just allows it to dip into places it hasn't before, and yeah, I think that's going to spark a lot of new innovation on top of that.
Right on.
But yeah.
Man. Mark, what about you?
Yeah, I think you nailed it earlier when you were talking about how to sort of keep your to keep afloat in crypto, you have to broadly know what's going on and sort of all of the different verticals. And I think basically every subsector you could imagine is interesting, right? Like I have at least a reasonably strong interest in DAOs, NFTs, DeFi, gaming, whatever you want to say. I think that gaming to me is not a personal interest all that much, but I think it is really exciting as a potential application that's going to bring a ton of new people into crypto. So I'm very excited about its promise that way. I think for me personally, sort of some of my like pet interests, I think the identity space is really really interesting. I think that like when I think about what blockchain sort of solves, the novel things that it lets us do, there's sort of like adding a financial layer to the internet, which is awesome, and then adding like property rights and identity. And so I think a lot of the stuff around even sort of like somewhat crypto adjacent stuff, things like decentralized identifiers and verifiable credentials, like definitely think that space is cool. There's a lot of interesting crossover between ZK tech and identity and data ownership. So I think that's really exciting. And yeah, I think just stuff in that space is like, it's interesting to me. And I also just think it's worth mentioning because it feels a little bit kind of undervalued or like underappreciated. I think when people talk about their favorite things in crypto, that doesn't often sort of come to the top of people's list. But I think for me, it's really pretty cool.
Couldn't agree more on all those on all that. Mark, you're really just preaching to the choir here at Whalecoin Talk. Last question for you guys, and going to start with Will again on this one. If I was to give you $100,000 and you had to DCA into crypto over the next year, what would that portfolio look like?
I would definitely lead with ETH first, and I think this goes back to the original question, but yeah, I would definitely do ETH. I mean, there have been a lot of other layer ones, especially during the last bull run that, got a lot of attention. But I think over time, Ethereum just continues to get stronger and cement its, place in the market as sort of the layer one to lead others, just in terms of decentralization, community, and just developer traction. But yeah, I'm curious to hear what Mark has to say though.
Yeah, it's tough, right? It's like picking your favorite children. I think I would probably go something like 40. I'd give like a slight edge to Ethereum. I'd do like 41% Ethereum, 39% Bitcoin, and then 20% in like the DeFi Pulse Index or something, just to get like exposure to maybe um, some other assets, like hopefully kind of have this like basket of other assets. I know people always talk about DeFi tokens sort of like uh, being a leading indicator of the rest of the market. So like people have speculated that, whenever the next bull run is to come around, that you'll see some of the DeFi tokens kind of launch first. And I think like having some exposure to Uniswap, Aave, Compound, things like that is you definitely want to like have some sort of allocation to those. But yeah, like Will, I think really excited about Ethereum, just like the growth prospects there, especially. And then Bitcoin is just like a staple.
Well, Mark, Will, it's been a pleasure having you guys on, picking your brains, learning more about Williams Blockchain Society and your career aspirations. I wish you guys both the best in life, and you're doing great things at a very young age. Love to see it, and excited to see how your generation moves the needle of this industry forward. If you have any final thoughts for our audience, go ahead and share them now. Otherwise, it's been a pleasure.
I just want to thank you, Noah. Really appreciate you giving us the space to talk about this stuff, share a bit about the club and about ourselves. Love and appreciate the work that you and the team are doing to spread the good word and to just educate and get other people excited about the space. So yeah, really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much, Noah. Really appreciate being on and being able to talk about Williams and all the stuff we're doing. Yeah, and hope to keep you posted.
Right on, gentlemen. Whale Coin Talk community, that was my third AMA of today. We have one more coming up with our main man, Glenn. You're listening to another episode of The Aquarium with Williams Blockchain Society. Remember that everything you hear on these broadcasts is meant for educational purposes only. Nothing is financial advice. So be safe out there, and we'll see you all tomorrow. Take care.